Hey folks, welcome back to the fifth edition of the Fantasy League podcast with Jerry and CT. That's right, the big five. We're glad to have you this week. Just a little bit of housekeeping as is normal. We'll go through and look at last week's matchups, starting with the blowout of the week. I mean, Jerry, that might involve you this past week.
Finally.
I know. Then we'll take a little break, and then we'll come back and we'll do previews for the current week's matchups. So, Jerry, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. A lot of injuries, a lot of buys, lots to talk about. So should be a fun little podcast if you want to call it that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've flipped on sharing, so I'm going to switch over here. And oh wow, there we go. Jerry, like you said, the blowout of the week has you and, not surprisingly, Mayse on the other end.
Yeah, I think we called this one pretty early. The afternoon slate was amazing for me. Actually, afternoon slate, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football. I got 70 points from 3 players, and Mayse only got 22 from 4. So it was very good afternoon and Monday Night Football for me. Very surprising. The Chargers defense, if you want to scroll down a little bit, gave up 34 points and still got 6 points. And the Bengals only gave up 11 points. 8 of those were very late. I think it was a really late touchdown to Swift. And they only got 7 points. So it's just kind of crazy. Defense points can be so unpredictable. But there's just one little tidbit I noticed. Like, you give up 34 points and you still beat your projections. That's crazy. Everyone except Hurts had single-digit production, and Julio just can't be trusted anymore. I mean, his hamstring, we talk about it every week, is hanging by a thread, and I feel like he plays maybe every other game just because he's hurt it so often. Mayse could have added 3 points to his total had he played the major waiver wire acquisition in Jared Cook, who he spent $25 on in the off cycle. So I'm a little surprised he didn't play his big acquisition there, but it wouldn't have mattered. We knew going into it he just didn't have the lineup to really compete. And actually, it was kind of close until CD had a great game, and then of course Derrick Henry had an amazing game. So that kind of put me over the top and led to the blowout of the week. It wasn't a blowout because I did so well. I think it's just kind of I did okay and Mayse did so poorly.
Yeah, I think that accurately sums it up, Jerry. You had what we expected out of Henry. CD's a stud. Rodgers matched Hurts. But the difference here is you can't have 8 to 9 guys scoring single digits and win very often. So. But Mayse, unfortunately, is dealing with some bad injury luck and got more bad luck or bad news whenever they put Caffrey on IR for another few weeks. So, it looked like he might be coming back and he might be getting healthy, but it appears the string of bad luck will continue.
Yeah, that was interesting. That was kind of the narrative that I thought he was going to get better and then all of a sudden just get slapped with IR. Maybe something happened in practice. I don't know, but that's really bad luck for all people who had the first round, first overall pick in a lot of leagues all over that you lose CMC for multiple weeks, probably almost 2 years in a row now.
Yep. And Mayse has had him both years. So, but all right. Well, Jerry, where do you want to go next?
All right. Now that we're done with that one, let's go to Taylor versus Jack.
Okay.
Start off with this one. A note from last week: after putting up 178 points from the week before, Jack's team put up 104 points less than that and got his ass kicked by Taylor's team. Maybe Taylor's team played really hard because they knew they were going into a bye week the next week. Gibson is very hurt, and he already lost Saquon, so I think Jack's injuries are just starting to pile up. Apparently, Gibson may play, but with a fractured shin this upcoming week, I don't know. That's just unfortunate that he got hurt, and you probably watched the game. Probably McKissick took over after Gibson got hurt. So
yeah, I think.
Go Go
I
ahead.
want to say Gibson was in until like the fourth quarter, but it just wasn't effective.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, only 2 points though. If you played that much, that's not good. And I think we talk about it every week. Swift caught like a really late touchdown again that gave him 12 points, but it still didn't matter. I predicted Herbert would dominate the Baltimore defense, but I've been listening to some podcasts, and apparently John Harbaugh like disguised the defense really well and confused the LA coach and Herbert. So they kind of got outcoached and dominated in that game, and what everyone thought was going to be a really close matchup, Baltimore ran away with it. Um, and then Stephon Diggs finally got a TD, so that brings him and his brother both to 2 touchdowns on the season. His brother Trayvon, who plays for the Cowboys. Great game out of Marvin Jones. I feel like Taylor's been playing him there every week, and this one finally paid off. He had a great game against Miami over there in London. Dak should have had a bigger game. I thought he was in the end zone on that third down, but I guess they didn't review it, and then that fourth down he fumbled. So he could have even had a bigger game. Could have even been more of a separation between, I said, the lawyer and the headhunter. So that kind of got his butt kicked, and Taylor had a great week. But we'll see if that's the same case for Taylor next week.
Yep, I agree. I think Jack. I mean, even with down week from Herbert, I don't know that it would have mattered. Taylor just kind of had everyone perform a little bit above expectations, and and then Prescott, had a big week, and so whenever that happens, you'll see these 125 point type games out of Taylor. So going into the bye week, he needed a win.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, me and him both benefit when Prescott's finding CD, and he was targeting him a bunch in the third quarter on. So that was great. Great for me and great for Taylor.
Yep.
Good win for him.
Yeah.
Keeps him in the thick of it.
Yeah, he's right in the middle right now.
You think Jack is pretty much eliminated with his team?
With 1-5, I mean, with his running backs have been, we went into the season with what I thought were a good trio of running backs. I mean, I was probably lower on Swift and Gibson than others, but I was real high on Saquon, and it's just been injuries and ineffectiveness. So it might be, even if he goes on a run, it might be too little too late.
Right. I was low on Saquon and Gibson at the beginning of the season. I was actually questioning. I had no idea what Swift was going to do. I didn't look into anything, but I still feel like he just has run into some really bad luck, and those running backs just have not produced where he drafted them. So those two combined are going to give you 1-5 record, that just sucks for a player as good as Jack.
Yeah, well, and he, it sucks because he also made some good draft picks. I mean, Deebo Samuel has been a real game changer so far, and so I don't know. It'll be if he gets some wins and gets some good luck, maybe he can sneak into the 6th seed. But at this point, it might be too little, too late.
Has he already played Mayse? I guess we.
I don't know. That's a good question. I'd have to go look.
I don't think he has.
So, well, we will see. We will see.
RO versus SHmee's next.
Okay. Rowe versus the SHmee-minator. All right. What do you got here, Jerry?
I said the double up worked to perfection, but not for Stafford and his favorite target, Cooper Kupp. Two girls, one Cooper Kupp, as they combined for 62 points. Kupp has the most targets inside the 10 and 20 with a total of 9 catches, 87 yards, and 6 touchdowns. That's crazy. I mean, you can get great points from people, burning people on 50-yard touchdowns, but if you're constantly getting targets and catches inside the 10 and 20, I mean, those are going to add up to some points, and that's what he's kind of been doing all season. Harris got another 18 points from his 1 million touches he gets per game. Eckler and Scary Terry threw up a dud, and he still put up 122 points. Dallas D continues to be one of the best fantasy defenses. I don't think they're like the best defense like NFL wise if you're more of like a team fan, but they get turnovers and they turn them into touchdowns. That's just how defenses go. So kind of crazy how historically bad they were last year, and now they're one of the top fantasy defenses this year. Huge turnaround. I think RO just had the wrong TB wide receiver. I think the pecking order goes Brown, then Evans, then Godwin. There's just so many mouths to feed. Like I have Evans in another league, and I'm not loving the situation. Antonio Brown being out definitely helps these two next week, and we'll talk about that in the future matchups. But just kind of a tough break that he just focused on Antonio Brown and tight ends that week, and just didn't really get any points from Godwin. Plus Fournette had 2 rushing touchdowns, so takes points away from TB. I think we predicted this one. SHmee's got a great team. That's why he's in first. Went on to a pretty easy victory. Didn't really have to sweat much, especially with that Stafford and Cup, double up. 12 points for every time they scored together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think you highlighted it. SHmee's team is just real solid, and he had down weeks from McLaurin and Eckler, and still was able to put up $122. And RO probably went up above and beyond a little bit, getting 20 points from Collins and 10 from McKissick. With not knowing that there'd be an injury to Gibson. So RO needs those big blow-up weeks from Brady and not the Lenny Fournette games. And so just, it would have been a little different if he had been able to get the double up with Brady and Godwin, but not surprised at all by this result.
Yeah, I think we predicted that one. Next, I got you versus CB, my D.
Okay.
This one I put Josh Allen put up the most points between both the teams, but CT still crushed CB, who was coming off a big week last week. Mike Williams finally came back down to earth after Herbert had a terrible game. I guess it was just kind of compliment good game plan from Baltimore to slow him and Herbert down. Hopkins finally had a great game, but it wasn't enough as the trade acquisition JT killed it, and Mahomes had a great second half to put up a respectable 31 points. I didn't get to watch the game, but from everything I heard, it was kind of a crazy game, tale of two halves for Mahomes there. Fant had one of the best days of the season. CT is praying that this keeps going. Newsflash, it doesn't. Weakest point on his team is Amari, and I think Amari has like a floor of 50 yards, but like a ceiling of 80 yards and a touchdown, and that's like it. Just using the eyeball test, I think CD is Prescott's favorite target and kind of getting a lot more open than the other two receivers, even with Gallup coming back. Obviously, a great trade with getting Jonathan Taylor, and that's what makes PT a full-time champion owner. Yeah, your neighbor doing yard work?
Yeah, someone's decided to turn the blower on and do some yard work out there. So I apologize if that's real loud. Let's see if I can.
I'll just comment over it. You had a great win, even though Josh Allen put up 39 is kind of the headliner.
Yeah. Well, I think, I don't expect 150 points every week, but I do, if I can get to that 120 spot, I'm hoping I can get a win most weeks. But this was, I just need Antonio Brown to keep being the guy in Tampa Bay, and I've got enough depth at wide receiver that if Cooper takes a back seat to CD, I'm still, I think, covered there. So
very nice win.
Thank you.
That puts you in second?
Yes, on point. There's, I think, 3 teams at 4-2, but I've got the most points scored. So,
Nice.
yes.
I have Nels versus Scales next.
Oh, man. The most boring matchup of the week. I think I called this being the lowest scoring matchup.
Oh, yeah. I did put in my notes that this was such a boring matchup as neither team put up more than 90 points. Scales definitely caught a break here. Nels had not one but 2 zeros in his lineup. Baker played like shit and was hurt and never found a Joku. Uh, Also, Gaskin put up a huge dud and a great matchup after breaking out last week. Looks like those two kind of fooled Nels. Put up monster numbers last week, puts him in the lineup. They don't really do anything. Scales still needs a good QB. Right now, he's streaming, and I thought he'd have a good matchup against KC, but he only threw up 11 points. He dropped Captain Kirk, and I don't think Trey Lance is the answer. He got lucky this week, and it's going to be hard to win with only 11 points from your QB each week. DJ Moore has cooled off against a great matchup and a very high scoring game. It's kind of crazy that he didn't get more involved in such a high score. I guess they just didn't get involved in the passing game. He's made some great moves with if Tony can stay healthy, which I don't think he can, but a lot of people are really high on Tony, so that was a good pickup. Chuba is looking like another great pickup since CMC's out. He's been putting up pretty good production since he's been out. I'm not down on Nelson's team, I think, as much as he is, as we've been kind of talking to him. He's streaming quarterbacks, but has great wide receivers and more options than Gaskin at RB2. We'll get into his team next in the next segment, but I don't think he's as bad. This is just kind of a crappy week for him, and Scales definitely caught a break.
Yeah, I think Scales kind of caught a break here. I mean, Adams could have had a bigger game, and but Moore and Jefferson could have had bigger games too. So, just lucky to catch a couple of zeros, and I don't think he's gonna. I think Scales is got it pretty. He's pretty set right now because he'll have Chuba who's in a good spot, and then he'll lose the job the same time that Monty comes back, and so he's got a good trio of running backs and 2 good wide receivers. It's just finding a quarterback week to week.
Yep.
So, where to next, sir?
I think this is the last one of Bryson versus Wes.
Bryson and Wes. Another high-scoring game here.
Yeah, I think Wes was the only loser with more than 100 points this week. Everybody else was in double digits. I have what a great performance from Bryson's team. Almost every player was in double digits except 3. 20 from Mixon, 22 from Thielen, and of course, Kyler torched the Cleveland defense, who's really banged up. And I feel like they may even gotten more banged up last night if they lose Ward. He has a hamstring injury, but I mean, Kyler just made Cleveland, his little bitch. Unfortunate week for Wes. I thought Lamar would get a lot more points with, the poorest defense of the LA Chargers, but it looks like they just took advantage of how bad the run D was and just, in the red zone, handed it off to the running backs, and they kind of reaped the benefits of that instead of Lamar. Let's see, I have after a great start on Thursday Night Football with 24 from Leonard, Bryson came back with a vengeance and won by 30. You got to kind of be down on your team, like you see your opponent score 24 on Thursday Night Football, but come back and blow them out was huge. This is where all the good running backs are stashed. Too bad Bryson lost Hunt for a few weeks. He should be able to insert a decent flex option and still have 2 great running backs. Both teams are set up well for future matchups. I feel like this was kind of more of a heavyweight fight.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jerry. I'm not that surprised here. I think
Bryson's team is solid with solid receivers, solid quarterback play, and good running backs. The Hunt injury will hurt, but I think he's got some depth to be able to weather that. And so, and over on the other side, Cook looks healthy, and we've got regular season Lenny, who's putting up, scoring some touchdowns. So if he can get some production out of his receivers, West is going to stay up in the standings as well.
Yeah, both teams are going to have running backs on IR. They have Carson and Hunt, and they still are set with Fournette and Cook, and then Jones and Mixon. I mean, that's a great problem to have. I'm definitely, and we'll talk about it in the next segment, I'm not really looking forward to Sutton anymore. I think Bridgewater and Bridgewater and Locke are both not great throwers of the ball, and that should hurt Sutton. Denver's looking awful.
Yeah, Bridgewater looked I think he's got a foot issue, but he looked terrible last night.
But I don't think Locke is that much better.
At least Locke is willing to throw the ball down the field.
Probably. That could maybe help Sutton, but he's also got to go against Patrick and Fant getting a bunch of targets. I thought Claypool would have a way better game against Seattle's awful defense, and Big Ben looked, whenever he targeted him, he just threw it up way too early. Like Claypool wasn't even turned around, and he threw it into coverage when it'd still give Claypool a target. Claypool is so big and athletic. I'd be surprised if Pittsburgh doesn't use him more often, but it looks like Big Ben is just targeting Johnson and Harris, and that's it. So I really don't know if Claypool will get a boost. I know it's only one game, but hopefully he does. I'd like to see him better. Kind of just 1 point from him. Not that it would have made a difference in this matchup, but still going forward.
Yeah. We'll see, man.
Awesome.
Okay.
I think that may wrap it up. I think we went over all the matchups.
Okay.
I guess real quick, the stat, I only got 2 matchups right last week. I think I got mine and SHmee's.
Oh man, I'd have to go back and see what I picked, but
I had it on a sticky note, and no, I don't know. Oh yeah, I got mine and SHmee. Yeah, I missed. I predicted Jack, West, Nels, and CB, and they all lost. So.
Oh wow.
Not a good week for me picking matchups. Week what was 6? That was week 6.
Yep, week 6. So.
All right. You want to sign us off?
All right, Jerry. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in to the recap for last week. We'll be back in a few minutes for a preview of week 7 matchups, or otherwise known as By Mageddon.
Very nice.